For the last 600 years, there's been this one book that's basically been laughing at us. Seriously. It's a puzzle that has stumped the world's absolute brightest minds, a code that has fought off every single attempt to crack it. People call it the Everest of cryptography. And today, well, we're going to gear up and start the climb to base camp to figure out what makes it so impossible.
So what exactly are we dealing with here? I mean, what if I told you there's a 600-year-old book that could stump every, and I mean every, codebreaker, historian, and even modern AI on the planet? It sounds like science fiction, right? Like something that fell out of another dimension? But it's not. This is very, very real. This is the Voynich manuscript.
Okay, so get this. First off, its pages are filled with over 100 plants that botanists say, well, they just don't exist. We're talking plants with roots shaped like human teeth or animal paws. Some are these crazy hybrids of species that have absolutely no business being fused together. Then you turn the page and you see these incredible astronomical charts, zodiacs, stars, galaxies. But here's the kicker, they don't match any sky we can see from Earth. It's like a map to a whole other cosmos. And the real mystery, every single page is covered in this elegant, flowing script. A language, or maybe a code, that to this day, after all this time, remains completely, utterly, stubbornly silent. Nobody can read a single word. Okay, so where do you even begin with a mystery this deep, right? Well, you do what any good detective would do. You start with the physical evidence. We're going to forget all the wild theories for a second and just examine the object itself. Treat it like a crime scene. And believe me, this book has had a wild life. We know it was owned by a Holy Roman Emperor, a guy named Rudolph II, who was totally obsessed with alchemy. He supposedly paid 600 gold ducats for it, which was an absolute king's ransom back then. From there, it went to this guy, Athanasius Kircher, basically the 17th century's version of a super genius, and even he couldn't make heads or tails of it. Then poof, it vanishes for 250 years before a book dealer, Wilfred Voynich, finds it in 1912. I mean, this isn't just a book. It's a historical celebrity with a heck of a story. Now, for a long time, the number one theory was that this whole thing was a clever fake. The main suspect, a famous 16th century mystic named John Dee. And honestly, it made a lot of sense until 2009. That's when scientists at the University of Arizona got their hands on it and did radiocarbon dating on the pages. The result was a total bombshell. The vellum, the animal skin the book is made of, was from between 1404 and 1438. That's a full century before our main suspect, John Dee, was even born. So with that one test, decades of theories just went up in smoke. It proved one thing for sure. This book is absolutely the real deal. And the forensic work didn't stop there. There's this incredible field called codicology. You can basically think of it as CSI old books. They analyze the ink, the paints, everything. And the verdict? It was all completely period correct for the early 1400s. The ink was standard iron gall ink, the blues were made from azurite, the greens from malachite. All stuff you'd expect. So the big takeaway here is that the physical object is 100% authentic. It is not a modern forgery. And honestly, that just makes the mystery of what's written inside even more maddening. All right, so we've established the book itself is real. The pages, the ink, it's all legit. So what about what's actually inside? Let's stop thinking of the drawings as just fantasy and start treating them like clues, because they're really the only eyewitness accounts we have to figure out what this book is all about. Okay, so the first and biggest section looks, for all the world, like a medieval herbal, a guide to medicinal plants. Except these plants are, well, they're just bizarre. They look like composites, almost like someone took the roots of one plant, stitched them to the leaves of another, and stuck the flowers of a third on top. Just complete biological mashups. A few botanists got really excited thinking they recognized plants from the Americas, like a sunflower. That would have been a huge deal. But remember the carbon dating? It puts the book way before Columbus. So what are they? Stylized drawings? Or maybe a coded recipe book for alchemists? But here's the thing about the Voynich manuscript. Just when you think you've seen the weirdest part, you turn the page and you realize the rabbit hole goes so much deeper. If you thought fantasy plants were strange, it gets a lot weirder. Welcome to what experts call the balneological section. That's a fancy word for bathing. And it is filled with these drawings of small, nude women, people call them nymphs, who are all hanging out in these green pools connected by this incredibly complex, almost organic-looking plumbing. Honestly, it looks like a surreal IKEA instruction manual for the human body. The theories are all over the place. Is it a guide to medicinal spas, a symbolic chart for alchemy, a lost textbook on women's health? We have no idea, because there is literally nothing else like this in any manuscript anywhere. So let's recap. We have a real 600-year-old book filled with impossible drawings. This brings us to the million-dollar question. What on earth is the text? The entire investigation has pretty much narrowed it down to 3 main suspects.
Okay, suspect number 1. It's a cipher, a code that's hiding a real language, like Latin or German. And there's good evidence for this. The text follows certain statistical patterns, like some letters appearing more often than others, just like every real human language does. But, and it's a big but, if it's a code, nobody in 600 years has found the key. Suspect number 2. It's a brilliant hoax. Maybe it was made just to fool that emperor and get his gold. The motive is definitely there, but the text seems way too complex and internally consistent to just be gibberish. And finally, suspect number 3. It's a real natural language that has just been lost to time. I mean, the script flows so naturally, it looks like it was written by someone who spoke it fluently. The problem? It doesn't match any known language family on the planet. So you see the problem, right? Each theory has bits that fit, and huge pieces that just don't. And this whole debate is perfectly captured by 2 people. In one corner, you have William Friedman. This guy was a legend, a WW2 codebreaker who cracked Japan's top-secret purple code. He spent decades on the Voynich manuscript and was absolutely convinced it was a real, complex, constructed language. Then, in the other corner, you have a modern researcher named Gordon Rugg. And what he did was incredible. He showed that you could generate text with all the same strange statistical properties as the manuscript using a surprisingly simple 15th century tool called a Cardinano grill. It's basically just a grid with holes cut out that you slide over a chart of syllables. It was a stunning proof of concept that a convincing hoax was actually possible. So you have the master code breaker versus the modern skeptic, a total clash of titans over the very soul of this book. Which brings us to the biggest question of all. We've had brilliant minds, supercomputers, AI, all thrown at this thing. So why does it remain unsolved? And maybe more importantly, what would it actually take to finally crack this case for good?
Okay, so listen. Almost every year you'll see a headline, Voynich manuscript solved. But for any solution to be taken seriously by the experts, it has to pass a 3-part test. It's a really high bar. First, you have to be able to translate a big chunk of the book, and the translation has to make sense. The plant section should actually talk about plants. Second, other independent experts have to look at your method and agree that it works. It can't just be you. And third, and this is the big one, your method or key has to be replicable. It has to work on the whole book, not just a few words you cherry-pick to fit your theory. And so far, no one has even gotten close to clearing all 3 of those hurdles.
And that's where we're left, standing in front of a book that looks like a language, that acts like a language, but just refuses to speak to us. And it makes you wonder, maybe its real purpose wasn't to hide a secret message, but to act as a kind of mirror, reflecting our own deep need to find meaning and patterns in things we don't understand. Or maybe, just maybe, it really is a 600-year-old secret, just patiently waiting for that one person, that one new idea that will finally teach us how to listen.